Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of Fully Booked, the Hidden Gems author podcast, which Craig Touch and myself, Roland Hume, chat some of the interesting figures and leading lights of this crazy industry we're in of writing and publishing. And today we are very, very honored to welcome Dr. Richard Kaye, who has, as he said himself, many careers over his past, but he's here today to talk to us about publicity. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Outstanding, Roland. Cold, but great. Although probably not as cold as you. You're in New Jersey. Maybe even be colder there.
It is very, very cold here. It is, absolutely. But you know what? It's beautiful as well. And I enjoy New Jersey because we have 4 full seasons.
Yeah,
and of course, we wouldn't be here without the man himself, Craig Touch, the owner and founder of Hidden Gems and an author himself. How are you doing today, Craig?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Roland. And thank you for coming on, Richard. Publicity, that's one of those topics that a lot of self-published authors, they don't really think that much about. I find that, well, they think, they want to market themselves, they want to do advertising, but in terms of the publicity that you're talking about, sort of like getting out there in different mediums that are more, let's say, traditional, I think a lot of authors figure that that's not something, a lot of self-published authors figure that that's not something that they can necessarily do. They would need to hire a team or have, a traditional publisher behind them. So I want to talk about that and different things that they can do, different ideas. But first of all, why don't you give us a little bit about your background, how you get started and all this, and then we'll go from there.
Great. I love it, Craig. And thanks for the opportunity to play in your sandbox. Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to want to take notes. This is not just my spouting off here. You're going to get useful information that you can implement right after this, because I don't want you to leave during it. So I started off as an electronics engineer. Roland, I said I've had a few lifetimes here. Then I graduated from chiropractic college. And why is that important to this conversation? I drove from New York. Roland, I grew up on Long Island. I drove out to San Diego to start a chiropractic practice. There were 300 chiropractors in town. Ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't make a difference what you do. You're in a crowded field. You guys, there's a gazillion, I don't know the number, but there's at least a gazillion and a half podcasts. Your authors, your writers, whatever it is that you do, you're in a crowded space. Your job is to stand out from the crowd. And we'll talk about this a little bit later on, how you can have some skills to do that, to get people to say, I choose you. I want you. Whether you're a chiropractor or a podcast host or HVAC person, doesn't make a difference. So I learned about publicity really fast. Take notes. I got an article in the San Diego Tribune. I got a feature article with color pictures. Then I had an article in the Los Angeles Times. And people often ask, hey, can you get me an article in my hometown? Doesn't make a difference. Hey guys, let me ask you a question. Which is more impressive, to have a newspaper article about you in your hometown, or Los Angeles Tribune, or the London Journal? Which is more impressive? See, if they're writing about you out of town, it's much more impressive. Not a lot of patients came down from LA to San Diego. It's a 2-hour ride on a good day, but it was leverage. And we're going to talk about leverage. How is it leverage? It was 30 some odd years ago. It's leverage because I'm still talking about it to give you the idea of what publicity can do for you. And here is the key. One day, I get a phone call from the producer of the ABC News in San Diego. She asked a question, something like, who are you? We're seeing your name around town. We're hearing about you. You see, you all know the expression. It's not what you know, it's who you know. You guys know that expression, yes?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's take it a step further. It's who knows you. It's who knows you. Now, that lady, that producer, she didn't know me personally, but she knew of me. And that was sufficient for her to call me. Now I got a 6:30 news segment about me. That's really cool. Sometime after that, excuse me, I get a similar phone call, excuse me, from the producer of PBS. Same kind of question. Who are you? Well, now I got a PBS segment about me. That's how I grew a practice exponentially. And I assert again, it doesn't make any difference what you're doing. You want people to know who you are, what you do, and you want to stand out from the crowd. So then I was introduced to an organization, ladies and gentlemen, some of you may have heard of it, Income Builders International, which changed into CEO Space. At the time, it was the largest business growth conference on the planet. It was Bob Proctor's brainchild. I was vice president of that for a while. The CEO, the founder, died, and that kind of went into disarray. And now I work with Publicity, and that's what you're going to learn about today, how to get publicity. So there's an answer to where I've been, what I've done, and how we come to talk here.
Oh, I mean, I'm a big fan of Bob Proctor, so like that's amazing.
Yeah, really cool guy. I rarely take pictures with, I don't play in the celebrity space, but in the business celebrity space, Bob is one of the guys I took a picture with. I don't know where it is because it's a long time ago, but yeah, he was an amazing soul.
So, okay, so when you said it all started from those articles that you got, when you said you got those articles, did you have to? How did you sort of get those articles? Were those ones that you wrote, or they were written about you? And how did you get the ball rolling on that?
Great question. And I say that because I started to write, and at the time I said, I don't know how to do this. So I engaged a friend of mine. Reality is my son's best friend's parents. And they said, oh, we'll do it for you. They got the article in the San Diego Tribune. The way I got into the Los Angeles Times is I was doing, as a chiropractor, some really out there healing, not headache and back pain and stuff. Almost anybody can do that. It was, I guess, more esoteric into the realm of quality of life. And I got a phone call from the reporter. And again, it was one of those things. Who are you? What are you doing? And she came down from LA, came down to the office with a photographer, interviewed me. And that's what it was. And we already talked about how I got on ABC News and PBS. Greg, you want people to know your name. Again, it's kind of my mantra. We're all in crowded fields. In our own minds, we are the best there is, and we better hold that space. But how do people know about you? How do people find out about you? That's what publicity is about. Now, we've got a bunch of authors we're playing with here. Is that correct? Okay, so.
Right.
Yes.
Everybody has a book in them. Some people may not want to get it out of them, but everybody's got a book in them. Ladies and gentlemen, the word publish simply means make available to the public. It doesn't mean make $1 gazillion. It doesn't mean be a Michael Connolly or a John Grisham. The reality is most people never achieve that status. There are three kinds of publishers, and this is 50,000-foot view. You got the big guys. You got Random and Putnam. If they were to pick you up, and you got to write a really good pitch for them to pick you up, they ask a very important question. They ask, what's your marketing budget? See, all they do is publish, which again means print. They're not going to go promote it. And they own you for 5 years. They own the copyright for 5 years. You can't do a thing. Then, guys, there's you and me as individuals. We can write a book. We can go on Kindle KDP and publish it. And then you pray to God, maybe your family and friends will read the book. Maybe. When I say that to people, they say, yeah, they won't even read it. And then you got to hope that it's edited, that it's spelled properly, that it's got a killer cover, and how you're going to get it out there. Then, as an author, and I'm going to share a real-time story with this, you have what we do as a hybrid publishers. Now, there are myriad people. I don't know about you guys. Maybe it's because the space I'm in, but multiple times a week, I get an email or a Facebook or something saying, hey, we'll publish your book. Well, now we know publish simply means put it into press. Doesn't mean anything. As a hybrid publisher, what we do is we edit it, we spell check. And editing is more than just commas and quotation marks and periods. It is the flow of the book. Where does this chapter go relative to this? Does this make sense? Is it continuity? Like in the movies, is it continuity? Is it compelling? Is it laid out so it doesn't look like a college textbook, which is just block after block of type? Is it got eye appeal? Is the cover compelling? When you go into a bookstore, the reason you pick a book off the shelf, there are two reasons. The title grabs you and the cover grabs you. My wife and I frequent the library here a lot, and I look at books and I say, geez, that's a horrible cover. I'm not even interested in it. And you may be the same way. If that cover grabs you, it doesn't guarantee you'll buy it. It grabs you, at least you'll pick it up and check it out. You with me on this? This makes sense, yes?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you need a dynamite cover, and AI doesn't cut it. You know, we're all living in this age. And by the way, writing a book by AI doesn't cut it either. If someone submits a book to us and it even smells of AI, we'll send it back. We're not interested. I want your soul to come through. I want your heart to come through. I'm not interested in some artificial intelligence saying, oh, I can do this. And again, I get emails, hey, we'll help you write a book in 24 hours. Well, doesn't mean anyone's going to read it. Yeah, you're shaking your head, Greg. You get that stuff too. And
yeah, and this is all stuff. Yeah, this is all like things that we talk about with authors all the time. And we do the podcast and we have our blogs, and we talk about that as well. Like the cover is what's going to grab them. And, online, most of these people are selling their ebooks. The blurb is the next thing they're going to see. All those things have to be on point. You have to have a well-edited book, all that stuff. And yeah, we also say the same thing. And most authors these days, they're not looking to have, most real authors, they're not the ones that aren't looking to make a quick buck. They're not using AI to do writing. They're using AI to help them in their self-publishing career. There's lots of good uses for AI as a tool, but yes, not to be your writer, right? So yeah, but now they've written their book, they're looking to get the publicity for it. That's where
right.
We're at.
And that's the key. And by the way, again, the big houses, they own you for 5 years, and when you do your own, or if you work with us, you own the copyright. I'm going to share a story with you. The woman who is now my wife, she writes fairy tales. She's from San Francisco. She was living in the UK when we met. And her fairy tales are designed for kids to fall in love with themselves. They're fantasies. Because when kids and adults, by the way, love themselves, they don't go out and shoot up schools and shit like that. We've got much too much of this. She spent over $200,000 trying to get her books out to the world. A couple of different publishers, huge promises, nothing. She came to our company, then we met and got married. We don't do that with clients. This was a different situation. She is now a #1 best-selling author, internationally renowned. She has won 12 different awards for her books. And ladies and gentlemen, or Craig and Roland, if you got kids or grandkids, go look at Angela Lee, AngelaLegh.com. They're amazing books. Again, all kinds of awards. Now, how do we get the word out? She's been all over the place. She speaks internationally. She doesn't host, she's a guest on summits. She's a guest on webinars. She's on stages domestically. She's on panels. That's what you've got to do. Well, you don't have to do it, but if you want people to know about you, those are the kinds of things you need to consider. Now, remember I said that in my situation, I got phone calls from ABC and PBS. Who are you? Angela was writing articles for the Los Angeles Tribune. She now writes articles, feature articles in about a dozen different newspapers that we have access to. Well, she got a phone call from Mo, the owner of the Los Angeles Tribune. said, Angela, you write so well and you write so much. How'd you like to be a columnist? It's like, whoa, where'd that come from? People know you. They reach out to you. They want you. They want to know who you are. Well, now she's got a regular column that she writes for the Los Angeles Tribune. So that's not going to happen to everybody, of course. That's what happens when people say, I choose you. Now, I said I'm going to give you some hard tools, skills to go out. How many times have you, seen someone in the newspaper, interviewed, see them featured, or hear someone as a guest on radio? I'm talking about terrestrial radio. You ever hear someone there and wonder, how come them and not me? That ever happened to you guys? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, here's how you can get to do that. So take notes, ladies and gentlemen. Find a talk show that you like. And by the way, I'm going to do a sidebar here. Newspapers are still, readership is in the millions upon millions. People say, oh, nobody reads newspapers. Yeah, they do. They're all over the place. The electronic as well as the print version. We may speak to that a little bit. Find a talk show you like. Find an audience that suits you. Now, I'm not a sports fan. I don't know who won, let alone who played in the last Super Bowl. So I'm not going to want to be a guest on a sports show because after I say hello, I've got nothing to say. So find a show you like that you'd like to be on. Find the producer. Don't even bother with the host. Now, this is terrestrial radio and television, by the way, same thing. Podcasts are different. Podcasts, you reach right out to the host typically. On radio, you're going to find the producer. Now, when I started this years ago, we had what was called the Yellow Pages, which was a thick telephone book, and the pages were yellow, and you'd find the producer. Write a pitch to them. I'm going to tell you what to do and what not to do. Now, let's back up a little bit and give you a reference for this. A typical interview on a terrestrial radio is 20 minutes. 3 shows an hour. Typical shows are 3 hours a day. Those programs, those stations typically have 3 different hosts a day. 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year, allowing a host takes vacation. 6,750 guests they need every single year. I'm going to repeat that. 6,750 guests they need every single year. They need you more than you need them. It's like, whoa. How do we get there? Because someone pitched them. You don't need an agent to do this. You don't need an agent. You can do this yourself. Now, and I'm going to use Craig and Roland as an example here. They didn't ask me how good, wonderful, amazing I am, what I've accomplished. They asked me a basic question. What are you, the audience, going to get out of this? That's what hosts care about. You're not there to pitch yourself. Just transparent. I'm giving you useful information that if you implement, I want you to get back to Craig and Roland and tell them how many times you got on the radio. Let them know. They want you to get value out of this, not just me talking away here. I'm old enough that I don't need that anymore. These guys, let them know that you've succeeded. So tell them what the audience is going to get. And a sidebar here again, many of you may be on networking events. And, in the chat, you write on this side, here's what I do. I'd love to be on talk. I want to do this. Nobody cares. Ladies and gentlemen, no one cares what you do. They want to know, we all do, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? And that's what these guys want you to get. So apparently I told them you're going to get enough that they said, hey, come on and do this. And that's what I'd like to believe you're getting. So you write them a proposal, who you are. Yes, you're going to include your CV so they know who you are. You've got credentials. And later I'm going to give you a gift. You want to leverage everything that you've got, every piece of media that you've got, because it gets you more. If someone has a book, and most of you are authors here, you have a better chance of getting on a podcast or a television or a radio program because it speaks to you as the author. And then we'll speak about compilation books as well as your own book. Compilation books are great. We'll talk about those. So you tell them who you are, what you do, and if you have a speaker's reel, send it along. Now, what's a speaker's reel? People hear about sizzle reels. People don't often hear about a speaker's reel. A sizzle reel is when you've been out there and you show ABC, NBC, PBS, Forbes, USA Today. You show places that you have been. Yes, it's about you, but it's showing that other people acknowledge you. A speaker's reel shows you on stage, shows you in action. Total transparency. I'm in the process of pitching some live stages again. I haven't done that for a while. And I'm sending them a speaker's reel to say, this is what you get. How do you get that if you don't have one? Every town you live in, no matter where you are, there's service clubs, there's Rotary, there's Kiwanis, there's Lions, there's whatever it is. Every week they need a speaker. 20 minutes you get. Hire some kids. If you don't have friends and family that can do it, hire university kids to come. And by the way, you pay them. Just because they're university and students doesn't mean they're going to do it for free. Do a 2-camera shoot, 1 camera head on, one either handheld and wandering, or one can be set up at 30 or 40 degrees. Have someone edit it, title it, narrate it, less than 2 minutes, by the way. Now you've got a speaker's reel. My first speaker's reel sucked because I didn't have the experience. Now it's a pretty good speaker's reel. I paid someone a lot of money when I was teaching at an event to create a speaker's reel. That's one of the things I send out to people. This is what you're going to get. Well, wait a minute. If it's radio, they're not going to have you moving around an audience. But it shows you in action. It shows you. And get trained to speak. Don't load your talk with ums and uhs and space fillers. People want articulate speakers. And the myriad people who can work with you on that. So now what have you got? You're going to pitch the radio show. What not to do, please don't give them every link you've got. Twitter, X, or Instagram, Linktree, Facebook, LinkedIn. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to look at that. Make it easy for them to find you. Your website, and if you have your speaker's reel, send it with a link. Some of them won't open links, by the way. Just be aware of that, as everyone's concerned about virus stuff all over the place. And a LinkedIn profile. Now, I don't do LinkedIn profiles, but you got to have one. If someone looks you up on LinkedIn and all it has is your name, what is it? If you look someone up on LinkedIn and it's got nothing other than it, what does it say to you? Well, they're not serious. So you're just starting out. You don't have this. Develop it, develop it, develop it. Not my specialty. I just have a LinkedIn profile that speaks to what it is that I do. And post stuff. What else not to do? Don't call them the next day and say, hey, I sent this to you. Did you get it? Now, you can call the producer and say, I'm going to send something to you. I just want to alert you about it. And then give them a week. They have lives too. You are not their most important priority. Give them a week, follow up. Now, personally, when I send an email and I haven't heard back, a week, 10 days, there's no fixed time. My subject lines, perhaps you missed this. Sometimes that gets more opens than the original email. And then you're rolling, you're shaking your head. Yeah. Because what did I miss? Yeah. So, and follow and be warm. Let your soul shine through, come from your heart space. And for God's sakes, don't sell anything. I have nothing to sell you here. I'm going to give you some information. I'm going to give you some opportunities to play that you may decide, hey, I'd like this information. And by the way, I'm going to give you an opportunity on February 3, 4, 5. The name of the organization is Top Talent Agency, toptagency.com, toptagency.com. We are having an event called Global Genius Summit and Symposium. Global Genius Summit and Symposium. And come play. I'll give you an idea of some of the people who are playing with us. A couple of months ago, I called a friend of mine. Many of you know the name Lisa Nichols. Lisa and I go back many, many decades before she was on Oprah, before she was on the video The Secret. And I asked her to come speak at a conference we had called Trailblazers Summit and Symposium. Remember I said it's not who you know, it's who knows you? Lisa, when she answered the phone, she said, "You got 5 minutes, Richard. I'm about to go live on a live stage." Told her the date. She said, "Of course, follow up with me next week." Well, she saw the work that we do and said, "I want to hire you to work with me, to get her back on top." You know, The Secret's an old video. She's an amazing soul. She's transformed millions of lives. Her company's large enough she can hire any company she wants, and she picked us to work with her. The other week, almost all of you would know this young guy named Les Brown. He called David, the president of our company, and said, "David, I watched the work you do. I want to work with you now." Les is another guy. He's all over the place. He can have anything he wants. Anyway, Les and Lisa will be speaking with some other amazing speakers. And it's an interactive program. It's networking. You're going to grow a business. Global Summit. Just go find it. I'll get you the link in a moment. And come join us. We had an average of 2,000 people a day at our Trailblazers that we did a couple of months ago. It's an opportunity to grow your business. You're authors. You want people to know who you are. Get out there and network. Let them know who you are. No matter how good you are, if they don't know about you, you're going to wither and die. You can say, "I'm a published author." What would be the distinction between saying I'm a published author and I've got a best-selling book, but not just any best-selling book? I've got a #1 best-selling book, and not just in one category, I've got it in 3 different categories. Those are the kinds of things that get you out there. And many people, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just, in terms of, all these ideas about getting out there, let's talk about the specifics that a self-published author that wants to sort of try some of this on their own can do. We've talked about putting the package together and how you would do the pitch, but if you don't know where to even begin or where to start or where to find these things, if let's say you're a fantasy author, putting yourself out there on a random outlet isn't necessarily going to be as impactful as finding something that is filled with, say, fantasy listeners. You want to focus yourself to get in front of the audience that would be most important to you. So how would authors, I guess, find those outlets in the first place in order to start pitching them?
The answer is Google, or whatever into search you want to do, internet search. Information is useless today. You can't sell information. Why not? It's free. You can find anything you want on the internet. And again, total transparency. I'm going to go back to what I said before, that I'm now talking to organizations, to my program on negotiation, which I started teaching about 20 years ago. Everything you do is a negotiation. I went into ChatGPT. And I said, find organizations that pay for speakers. Here's my subject, and write me a letter. Now, I didn't send that letter because, it's AI. I rewrote it in my voice, with my heart, my soul. Excuse me. I'm getting responses from people saying, "Let's talk." Ladies and gentlemen, you got to do the work. Either that or you hire somebody. I mean, you can hire us, and that's what we do. You can hire Craig and Roland. They do some similar things. Roland, I didn't know about you, Craig. I've seen you all over the place already. I did my research. You're really out there. Ask him how he got out there. Ask around, get yourself on podcasts, webinars, do your own research. I'm a firm advocate. If you've got more time than money, do it by yourself. If you've got more money than time, hire us to do it, not for you, with you, because it is a process. And we don't have a menu, by the way, click this if you want this, click this if you want this, because everything that we do, Craig, in this realm is customized. Yes, there's a baseline. There are things that are the same, but everything is customized. Lisa wanted to get interviewed at the NASDAQ studio in New York. She wanted to be on the NASDAQ Jumbotron in Times Square. That's a dream for a lot of people. Not everybody really wants that, though. Not everyone is ready for that. Who do you hang out with? If you hang out with people who say, oh, shit, I published a book and nothing happened, find a different cohort. Find people who are successful at what you want to accomplish. Roland, you're an advocate of Bob Proctor. That's one of the things he was about. Who do you want to hang out with? Hang out with the people who, not to pick their brains, because nobody wants their brain picked, but that you share knowledge, wisdom, and information, that you can sit down over a cup of coffee or if beer's your thing and talk and make the connections. It's a social organization in the world, meaning it's not what, it's who you know, but who knows you. Get those people to know you so that they want to explore how they may serve you. And don't go into a group or a networking thing and suck the lifeblood out of the room. Go to contribute. Go to be in service. And find out and watch what happens when people say, hey, this guy just gives and gives and gives. I have nothing to sell you. I don't have an offer for you. If you buy tonight by 4 o'clock, you're going to get, no, that's a 1970s, 1980s model. It worked then. Today, the culture is, how can I serve you? How can I provide information? And then you watch people show up in your work. Craig, does that address your question there?
Yeah, people sometimes, if you do a search, you'll find lots of things. It's sometimes hard to tell which are the most important things and which are the most valuable things and which are the things that have big audiences, as opposed to somebody who's just, paying a lot of money to move their search up in the rankings. So, a lot of times, it's hard to tell which are the best things. But I do agree on the networking aspect. Roland and I, when we started out, that was how we became successful. As we were with a group of other writers online, where we all shared our knowledge and our success, and that always we always attribute our success to that. They all raised, it was the rising tide raises all ships. That was something that we really believed in, and we still believe in. We recently started similar networking group sort of thing where we're sharing knowledge about specific topics, allowing a bunch of people to come together and a lot of authors to come together in sort of a every other week where we get together and have these discussions, networking and learning and all that stuff together. And that's our self-pub growth hub. So I totally agree with all that. It's just, the idea of how people find these things, and networking definitely is one of the best ways. That's another thing, is when you talk to people in your peer group, they're going to tell you about things they've learned, and you tell them about things you've learned, and that's a great way as well.
It's also, and it's introduction. And I'm going to do a pause. I should have known this URL, globalgeniusevent.com. Global Genius Event, February 4, 5, 6. Come play with us. You're going to have fun. Networking and sharing. Craig, we're saying the same things. The words are different. We're saying the same things. Get together with like-minded people and share and make introductions. I got one of the best things that I do is make introductions, and only make valuable introductions, and don't worry about what you're going to get out of it. Today, there are things called strategic alliances and joint ventures. And by the way, I'm looking for speakers for this Global Genius event. I'm going to give you can set up a call with me, talkaboutpublicity.com, talkaboutpublicity.com, and let's explore if you can be a speaker at this. There's no fee for it. You'll get 15 minutes on air, and imagine, and using my last one as an example, an average of 2,000 people a day to get your word out. It is not a sales event. Just like the groups that you hang out with, Craig, the ones that I just heard you talk about, I'd like to believe no one was selling anyone anything. You were just talking about, hey, I made this connection. I made this connection. Let me make an introduction if it suits you. That's how you grow business. The 70s and 80s days of me, they don't work anymore. We've all been in rooms or on networking events or in live events when someone comes in and they just suck the oxygen out of the room. And nobody likes that. It's an old model. It's a dying model. It should be dead, but it's still dying. And you'll see, I say commercials, emails and Facebook, close the room. Well, some of my good friends, that's their model. And some of them are the best there are at it. What happens if you just go to serve? There's a difference between pitching and selling and attracting and enrolling, ladies and gentlemen. That's one of the reasons I don't have anything to sell. Now, some of you may say, hey, I want to work with you. I want to be on stages. I want to have a book. And that's great. And we'll explore that. But I got nothing to sell you. You want, I was with a colleague of mine once at a Harv Ecker program. I don't know if you remember Peak Potentials training a long time ago. And a buddy of mine was on stage. A woman came out and said, whatever he's selling, I'm buying. He was so passionate. She gave me a credit card. She said, what did I just buy? It was his passion, his enthusiasm, his excitement. And it wasn't buy now and you'll save $1.97. Serve people, serve people, serve people. How many people can you serve? I said, I'm going to give you something that you can learn how to leverage any marketing, any publicity rather that you've got. richardkaye.com/leverage. richardkaye.com, KAYE.com/leverage. You're going to find it's about a 5 or 6 minute video, how to leverage everything you've got. And again, I mentioned that I still leverage the LA Tribune article, the LA Times article, even though it was 30 some odd years ago. Now, one of the things you'll see in there, for example, I'm thrilled to have been the recipient of the White House Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award.
I saw that on your website. What an amazing award.
Thank you, Roland. And I get chills even as it blows my mind. And it's on it's part of my email signature. That's leverage. And you leverage whatever it is. Now, that's a very gentle way of saying it, but obviously it impressed you because you just, fed it back to me. That's what you want people to say. Not, I saw that, but whoa. There's a message there. Somebody acknowledged you for what it is that you do. Apply for awards, by the way. Apply to be acknowledged. My wife and I started a program, Heart of Humanity Award. And we are beginning to acknowledge outstanding authors and people who have made massive contribution to humanity. And if you want to go look, heartofhumanityaward.com. Submit your book, submit someone else's book, submit yourself, submit someone else's, someone else. Honor people and acknowledge people. And you will find yourself a desirable entity to speak. Radio, television. This is a whole different conversation about television, how to be present on television. So there's so much that you can do as an author. Communication is the essence of it. Communicate, again, not to sell, but as an invitation for people to play in your space.
One thing I want to sort of cover, though, is a lot of authors are introverts. A lot of people become authors because they want to spend their time alone writing, and they're not interested in public speaking, in doing radio shows or television or getting up on stage. What are some of the things that they can do to get themselves out there? I know it'll be harder, but there's still some things that I think that they can leverage.
In my experience, a person who is an introvert is hiding. They don't want to give their gifts to the rest of the world. And when you have a gift, no matter how profound, who are you to deprive other people of your gift? So it's going to sound harsh, but get over it. You got to get out and share your gift. And you don't have to. You may not be a #1 best-selling author if you keep in hiding, though. So what you must do, at least in my perspective, is take small steps, Craig, small steps to get out there, small groups until you're comfortable. And then you get larger and larger. You don't have to be, I don't follow theater also. They just had awards, whether the Emmys or the Grammys or, some big awards. All those people are out there. They don't have to be extroverts. You have to know how to show up in public and have a conversation. And if you need to work with someone, I'm not saying a psychologist or certainly not a psychiatrist to work with, but work with your colleagues and your friends so you become more comfortable in a public space. And ask more than you tell. Ask questions. People will always want to connect with you. Is that useful, Craig?
I think it's useful if somebody is looking to get through that sort of block. I know, some people have anxiety and then stage fright and all those things. And, maybe they went into writing because they just don't want to do all that. And I'm not sure that, the answer for everyone is going to be getting over it. But, there are other things that I'm thinking, you can write articles, you can, feature articles on other people's websites. You can podcasts for me, like I'm not a great public speaker. If I was to get up in front of a crowd, that's not something I love to do. Podcasting is fine, right? So that might be something that authors might find is easier. And I've had a lot of authors on here, and I think some of them are in that boat where it's much easier to have that conversation at one-on-one. And maybe that's a radio situation too, where it's just, you're just talking to somebody almost like on the phone, right? You're not even seeing their face. Whereas, getting up on stage somewhere might be a separate thing. So there are different levels, I'm sure, that people can do based on their levels of comfort. Yeah.
You're absolutely correct. And remember that let's say that you're an author and you have written something, you know more than everyone else in the audience. Speak through that, because that's your specialty. That's your gift. And you don't have to go out on stage and speak to the masses. You can do it from behind the microphone, or on television, you can do it from behind the camera. Whether it's, again, terrestrial radio, podcasts, webinars, it's just you and them. You and the camera and the microphone. So you're in your safety nest, you're in your cocoon, and have fun. And that's probably the biggest thing. You guys, you're smiling, you're having fun, you're playing, you're nodding. That's what you want to do for yourself. You don't want to get out there like an automaton from the old science fiction movies and talk. Nobody cares. Just have fun and give your gift. And again, you know more than the people in the audience because you've written the book on it. So talkaboutpublicity.com. If you'd like to continue the conversation, let's explore how you can get out there, give your gifts. And, Craig, for a guy who's got all those awards and all those things, you haven't been hiding all the time. So you've done good.
So that, that's one of those things that I have to force myself to do some of those.
Yes.
But and that was one of the reasons why writing sort of drew me in. I was never somebody who felt comfortable getting up on stage. A few years ago, though, I forced myself. I went to a writers' conference in Vegas and as a speaker, and got up and talked, and that wasn't great. Like, I didn't, I'm sure I was a terrible speaker and read most of my notes, but over the years, I've tried to do other events too. It's still not a comfortable situation for me, but I know that there is value in it, and so it's worth it to me to get out there and make that attempt. It won't be for every author, but you always have to sort of figure out what it is that is within your comfort level, and sure, push it a little bit, and you will get better at it. But it's just something that everyone has to figure out for themselves.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You have to push the boundary. The first person I've heard say it, I've heard other people say it since, the quality of life is dependent upon the level of uncertainty you can handle. Many people live in certainty. I get up, I do the same thing, I do the same thing, I do the same thing every day. Invite uncertainty into your life. And in your case, Craig, it sounds like it was getting up and speaking, reading notes. So what? It's the first time. And then that becomes second nature, and then you grow beyond that. So if you want, and I say this as a global statement because I work with authors all the time, if you want your message out to the world, you have to step out of your comfort zone. You have to stretch. Otherwise, you're going to be that genius that nobody knows about. And I don't know who said it, but the greatest challenge is that most people die without ever having lived. Go out and celebrate. Celebrate the message. You've written a book for a reason. And unless it was just to amuse yourself, you want to bring your message to the world. And I use my wife, Angela, as an example. I mean, she wasn't an introvert by any means. She's got purple hair. So she's not exactly an introvert. She wants to get her message out to the world, and it's a relentless pursuit. Saving lives is what she is about. Kids' lives and helping prevent suicide is pretty important. Helping them not shoot up schools and not do suicide. She's got Lisa Nichols as a guest. I don't know when on her program. How did that happen? Because she stretched her boundaries. So, Craig, I would invite you. Stretch a little bit more. The biggest fear that they say is public speaking. People fear speaking more than dying. It ain't going to kill you. And you get off stage and you say, oh, shoot, I did that. And then you laugh at it. And, watching your expression, you've been there, done that, Craig. It's fun. Yeah.
Oh, well, unfortunately, we're coming up to the top of the hour, but that almost seems like a wonderful prescient thing to wrap our discussion up on.
Yeah.
The thought of you need to get out there to actually, be seen.
Yes, you have a message. Get it out to the world, and then watch people come to you. Maybe not at first. It's like, who is that? We've all looked at new people and say, nah. And don't judge people. We've all been there. Craig, I can look back mentally in my first public talks and geez, I wouldn't listen to that guy. He sucked. And then as you grow and own more of your strength and more of your power and recognize, speak from your soul, speak from your heart, share your gifts, people will want to know who you are.
Oh, well, that is a beautiful sentiment. Well, just before we wrap things up, Richard, and you can tell everyone where they can actually find out more about you and your event in February. Craig, do you have any final questions or comments?
Just thank you for the opportunity to play. Again, globalgeniusevent.com, Global Genius Event. Go on, register. You'll see some of the speakers. You'll have the opportunity to play. If you'd like to do two things, explore your own publicity, talk about publicity.com. Same URL as my calendar. If you want to explore being a speaker at that event, talk about publicity.com. Let's see how we can get you to the next level and take you and your message out to the world.
Well, wonderful. We will pop a link to that right down in the description here. And you know what? You should go and check that out. But while you're scrolling down there, if you're listening to this or watching on YouTube, you'll also pass that big empty comment box. Why don't you do what Richard suggested earlier and leave a comment right there and share what you thought of this particular episode and the value you got out of it, and also maybe the value that you think you can provide the world. So make sure you leave a comment there. We really appreciate every comment you do leave, and yeah, so we love to hear from you. While you're down there as well, there's that like button, there's that subscribe button. If you haven't hit it already, there's a little bell icon which will notify you every time there is a new episode of Fully Booked. And of course, there will be a brand new episode of Fully Booked coming out next week. So until then, stay tuned.